It's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today. His reputation precedes him. Anthony Reese and Marlena are both Fellowship of the Inner Light ministers who now live in Newport News. And they have both, or Hampton actually, but they kind of hobnob with those other guys. And they both have blessed this church and the greater community for so many years. And I could list all kind of degrees and whatnot about Anthony, and they're all important and part of what he does. But I think the most important thing that stands out to me is just simply how loving he is and how he reaches out with love, whatever he's doing with people and with his messages on Sunday, and likes to enliven the soul of every person. And so just having that in his auric field, people feel good around the Reeses. So anyway, we are very blessed to have them as fellow sojourners and in our spiritual family. And so let's open our hearts and our minds right now to hear an incredible message from Anthony Reese.
Clearly, I do not pay Susan enough. And one of the things I want you to remember was that incredible piece that John played, and the music that Chris plays. That is actually where I'm going. So it's so synchronistic, even what Susan was saying in the beginning, and even some of the inspirational readings. This is exactly the place I hope that you are all party to, have gone, and will go again. So first I'm going to do a audience check. A little joke first. Audience check. A computer once beat me in the game of chess, but it was no match for me in kickboxing. Okay, audience laughing, check. So what I'm wearing is not just an outfit, it is actually a prop. And I have 3 questions for y'all. What is the color between black and white? Gray. If I was representing an alien species, what species would that be? Gray. The grays.
What's amazing?
And the subject I'm going to be talking about actually is centered between the ears in the skull, and that is called the gray matter. You got it. Some people say brain, gray matter, so gray matters. So we all, I got participation, I got sound check, I got humor, I'm set. I am set. And so in the beginning, I'm going to read some fun facts about this noggin of ours. The memory capacity of the brain is around 2.5 million gigabytes of digital memory. And there's quite a few facts, at least 18, but they're short. Some studies suggest that humans forget approximately 50% of new information within an hour of learning it. Within 24 hours, the number goes up to an average of 75%. So you probably won't remember this talk tomorrow. Our cerebral cortex alone has a storage capacity of 74 terabytes. That's a lot. Yahoo says a petabyte, a computational center which can process 2.4 billion events a day, is jaw-dropping, 20% smaller than the capacity of a single human brain. Our brains, capacity is better than computers. Of course, they model computers after our brain. Short-term memory can hold up to 7 pieces of information at the same time, only for approximately 20 seconds. Did I already say short-term memory? A study conducted in 2001 showed that left-handed people have better memories. Who are our left-handed people? Any left-handers? Good, I got a paper I need you to write for me later. Left-brain people have better memory. And if you notice about left-hand people, they tend to kind of push you. Don't they kind of push? And their writing style, whatever way if they curve their hands this way or they do this, they were actually, in English language, of course, in another language might be the other way, but they actually push energy towards the right. Right-handed people actually pull energy towards the right. So, don't you know, anybody here right-handed? Right. So don't we have a tendency to just kind of pull people along? And we tell them stories, and they get trapped in our world. Right-handers. Humans have an average of 70,000 thoughts per day. And I can guarantee you when I was coming here just to do this talk, I had probably about 70,000 talks about how this was going to go. And if you think that sleep helps you, it does in a way, but dreaming takes more brain activity than any waking function, which means that it's wrong to think that the brain shuts down while we're sleeping. So who are our dreamers? You look tired. Visual memory of eyewitnesses is notoriously inaccurate. 75% of 235 wrongful convictions in the US were a result of an unreliable eyewitness. Most memories adults have come from when we were, get this, between the ages of 15 and 25 years old. Our tendency to remember events that occurred when we were young, called a reminiscence bump, can account for 60% of our memories. That is amazing. Surprisingly, it is possible to erase bad memories. Studies suggest that certain beta blocker drugs interfere with the recollection of memories. So we can actually erase bad experiences, bad memories. This one struck me. Whew. The human brain has 86 billion neurons, 400 miles of capillaries, 100,000 miles of axons, enough to circle the earth 4 times, and more than 10 trillion synapses going on all the time. Contrary to what I believe as a drinker, alcohol has a negative impact on our memory and prevents the brain from transferring information into long-term memories. Did I mention that alcohol has... Over the course of a lifetime, scientists estimate that modern human brains will hold up to 1 quadrillion pieces of information. That is a 1 with 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 zeros. How many years of memory can the brain store? 450 years. Now, on my 387th birthday, I will tell you if that's true. The peak age for memory is between 20 and 50. Anybody over 50? I'll pray for you. So in our brains store lots of memories, and particularly a particular part of our brain called the amygdala is the prefrontal cortex in our brains. We don't only have brain memory, but we also have heart memory. Heart memory. Heart memory is a very important factor in exploring these ideas. As the brain has memory, the heart also does. The development of specific signs and symptoms of certain situations under the control of autonomic nervous systems is a contributing factor. So when we experience a heart memory, and they know this from the studies they've done with folks who have had heart transplants. When they've had heart transplants, foods they used to like, they no longer like. They, in fact, like the foods, tastes. They've had memories of the folks that they received the heart transplant from. We also have what is known as cellular memory. I want to get to that. Cellular memory is a parallel hypothesis to brain memory, positing that memories can be stored outside the brain and all cells. The idea that non-brain tissues can have memories is believed by some who have received organ transplants, though scientists say that's impossible. And the other studies suggest that it is possible. So you, in gray, make a choice. That's a gray matter. So I wanted to ask, who are my musicians in the audience? All the hands, musicians, okay. Very good. So now we're going to work a little bit outside the brain. But before we do that, I wanted to ask you, when you want a piece of music that is not up here, you can access it in many ways, right? Phone, computer, tape deck, DVD. We have many media resources. We can access any piece of music that has been created. Basically, YouTube. Who are my artists? You'll go to a place to retrieve those ideas, those visions. Is that happening in your brain? Or is it happening in a different field, a very subtle field of energy that scientists now prove through the collider, the atomic collider, exists? Who are my therapists? You'll go to a place that is generally more heart energy because you have a particular desire to enter this field of compassion. Now, can you locate that field of compassion in your body? The answer to that is probably no. So where am I going with this? I wanted you to know that our DNA, that is a creation of the divine source, is us. We have God's DNA. We have his love, we have his light, we have his compassion. And when we want to access that field, we can. Who are our meditators in here? Who are daily meditators? Wow, it's amazing. That's amazing. Greg Braden, in a talk that he did, he said he was able to watch Einstein's brain. They do studies on it. They did studies on Einstein's brain. And the only thing he said that made Einstein's brain different from most people was he had lots of folds in the brain. And when stretched out, provided more surface area. And in that surface area were neurons, biological neurons, that act as antenna to this very subtle field of energy, where information is stored, where we are connected to one another. Who are my healers and psychics and mediums, and who are my empaths? Wow. You're able to tap into other human souls in this field. It's not happening in your brain. It's not happening in your heart. It is happening in this environment that God gives us access to. It is the God access. Albert Einstein showed in his special theory of relativity that space is intimately connected to time via the cosmic speed limit of light. And so, strictly speaking, we live in a universe with 4 dimensions of space-time. For everyday purposes, however, we think of the universe in 3 dimensions: north, south, east, west, up, down. And 1 dimension of time, past and future. And often we encourage you to be in now, because now is really the only place we can be at any given moment. Our minds can go to the past, or we can fast forward to the future, but we only really have control of now. In that case, a 5th dimension would be an extra dimension of space. So I'm going to talk a tiny bit about superposition. I'm going to make it so simple that even Lloyd can understand. Superposition is the ability of a quantum system to be in multiple states at the same time until it is measured, and in our case, until it is decided. So for a minute, 30 seconds, I want you all to close your eyes. Imagine that you are on a bed, B-E-D, bed. Your bed, you're by yourself, no one's there with you. You are just on this bed. And some of you are on your backs, some of you are on your stomachs, some of you are on your sides, some of you are on the right side of the bed, some of you are on the left side of the bed, some of you are diagonal on the bed, some of you are at the foot of the bed, or some of you have your head at the feet of the bed, and some of you, and of course you have no headboard, no footboard. So whatever way you position yourself, that's where you are when you decide. Before you decide what position you're in, you are in superposition. That means there are multiple choices, dimensions, where you could be lying in this bed. So when you decide to come out of this bed, kind of imagine what side you are going to come out on the bed. On the left side, the right side, the foot, the head of the bed, bounce off the bed, and decide that. Okay, now come on back. So prior to that decision, you were in superposition. So I wrote this for Susan because she asked for a summary of my talk. Our field of experience is our life's journey, accumulation of joy, that word Susan used, that wonderful word Susan used earlier, and auspicious relatable events. Now, that word relatable is how we navigate this planet. We relate through our 5 senses. And of course, the Fellowship of the Inner Light being the treasure trove of gifted beings, you do more than navigate with your 5 senses. There is a subtle energy field outside of the brain that we can access through our DNA. And we'll talk a little bit more about DNA and what that really means. So we scientists know it means deoxyribonucleic acid. And it forms the double helix. We know about the double helix. As children of the Most High Mind, it is natural that we copy our divine parent or parents. So would you say you know anybody who's ever spoken here who had a connection to this field? Joy Talley. How is it that she was able to, in an audience, be able to connect with an individual and be able to tell them about themselves? That's extraordinary. This is the kind of children we are of the great Creator. Sylvia Brown, John Edwards, Edgar Casey, Paul Solomon, Sharon Solomon, Brian Barry, and many of you have all accessed this field. Not in the brain, actually connected to this divine source of energy, of information, and connectedness with everyone that is around us. Trees have the ability to connect with other trees and forest growth through fungi and root systems that can sense when another tree requires nutrients, and it will share its nutrients. It will do that. Peter Wohlenben, in his The Mysteries of Natural series, and I don't know if some of you may have read this book, The Hidden Life of Trees, where he talked about, amazing book, isn't it? Amazing. And that's just a tree. I listened to, on NPR radio, a scientist explain that plants are essentially stationary, that they have extraordinary awareness of their environment, their dangers, and their optimal safety. We, on the other hand, we are mobile. So we generally rely less on that ability to have more awareness. We have our five senses. That's how we relate experiences in our journey. So what is truly DNA? Anybody want to fathom a guess? Okay. DNA, divine nature access. This is who we come from. Divine nature access. Now, you'll remember the scripture, some of us do, that in our design, the Elohim said, "Let us make mankind after our image and after our likeness," meaning that we were going to be formed like the divine parents. We were going to have likeness, duplication, creativity. The only difference mainly was the vehicles that we are in. And certainly this vehicle makes great fertilizer. It does. It makes great fertilizer. Planted underground, things grow up. Life teems in this vehicle. But in the spirit realm, that is non-corporeal. Non-corporeal. We know this as spirit. Now, we manifest all sorts of things in this earth environment. Some great and wonderful conditions and some horrendous conditions. But that's us. Now, in those 70,000 thoughts a day, average, what are we doing with those thoughts? What are we manifesting in our daily walk? How are we relating to people? How are we choosing to relate to people? 70,000 thoughts. Imagine if we could combine, and we do in prayer, we do when we're holding hands and singing like songs. We are tuning into each other to create a thought and send out an energy that is in God's DNA, love. We have the capacity for love, agape love, God's love. We have the capacity, because of our divine nature access, our DNA, to operate in the God mind and in God's love. We are encouraged to come back to the God mind, remind, and remember whose children we are. We are connected to the Christ consciousness. Does it happen here? Does it happen because we have this energy? We connect to this energy. Galatians 5:21, the fruits of the Spirit. So if you ever had any idea what God's likeness is, the spirit of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. Against all things there is no law. Our DNA spiritually links us to fields outside of the brain. Divinity is our nature. And in closing, a friend of mine sent me something this morning, talk about synchronicity. Yet another thought to put in my head while I'm doing this talk, right? Didn't need it, but it's so apropos. Scientists say that the human brain resembles the cosmos. Both neural and galactic networks have the same structure, pointing to a fractal universe. Side by side, the pictures of brain cells and cosmic web of galaxies make it difficult to tell the two apart. So it can seem that the universe is like one giant brain or gray matter, or vice versa, that a tiny universe is in each of our brains. That's not merely some entertaining thought. It's in a new study, an astrophysicist and a neurosurgeon have documented the striking similarities between cosmic networks of galaxies and neural networks of the brain cells. Where does that come from? As above, so below. Hermetic principle number 2. As above, so below. That's you. God beings walking on this planet. Change agents to your 70,000 thoughts, average in a day. What capacity you have to change the world, your local environment, your global environment, with just putting those 70,000 thoughts to and a different use. Notice I didn't say better. A different use than what we have been doing before. So as some of the religious figures often will say namaste, I give honor to you as many gods from this many God. Let's be about our divine nature access. Thank you.